All right, guys. So I just came across this pretty cringy and sleazy interview from Don Lemon with Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. Now, Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, it's the same police officer that basically accused the rioters slash protesters, however you want to categorize them, on January 6th, of calling him the N-word. Now, he could have been called the N-word. He could have not been called the N-word. I don't know. But what I do know is that I want to see the footage, right? I want to see all the footage. Release all the footage. Put everything out there. Okay, put it all out there. Okay, they say they got over 10,000 hours worth. Surely there must be footage of the crowd calling him the N-word, or somebody calling him the N-word, right? Who knows? Maybe we will see it one day. But in this interview, sleazy Don Lemon, right? Honest, unbiased journalist Don Lemon, I think, was put in an uncomfortable situation that he wasn't necessarily prepared for, because this officer actually started to give a little bit of truth serum, right? And I want you guys to pay close attention to what I'm talking about, because a lot of people in right-wing media, I don't think, really picked up on this nuanced aspect when they covered this interview, in which the officer, on two separate occasions, exposes the BLM protest as basically being the same thing, if not worse, than what happened at the Capitol that day, right? He basically says that on CNN. That's like a sin. That's something that you can't say on CNN. You can't say that, right? Now, this happened basically on two separate occasions. One in which he's talking about how bad the officers were treated, right? Which is true. And then two, in which he's talking about how the damage and destruction that they were causing was just as bad as the damage and destruction that was being caused on January 6th. And I want you guys to see if you can pick up on how Don Lemon tries to control the narrative here.
Officer, it's like almost you're not a real American.
I'm not a street cop. I'm not going to pretend to be. The officers in Portland, in Minnesota, in Seattle, and across the country that went through hell, my heart goes out to them. They didn't deserve any of the stuff that they went through. And a lot of people want to say, well, what about those guys? They are freaking heroes too. They deserve credit, they deserve honor, they deserve respect. Every single cop this summer that was met against Antifa and the vicious rioters this summer, they absolutely deserve the credit and respect those officers do. They don't deserve it. Just like on January 6th, it seems like it can't be this and this. It has to be this or that. Mm-hmm. It's both of them. Why can't both things exist? Both things are true.
You think they're shifting the blame? Or shifting, at least trying to shift the focus from what happened? Listen, we can deal with many things in this country at the same time. And if something happens, it doesn't mean that you go, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Can't we focus on what happened on January 6th, where our democracy was in jeopardy?
We should be.
This weren't just people who were exercising. Some of them were exercising their right to protest. Mm-hmm. Others went way too far. That's a different story than trying to undermine democracy and stop an election.
And that's kind of what bothers me a little bit. Even just the footage that they just played and that you showed from the Fox News clip. Laura Ingraham showed footage and Tucker Carlson showed footage of the individuals walking through the stanchions. But they didn't show the footage of the outside, the tens of thousands of hours of footage of the brutal combat that officers faced. First Amendment protests is what this country is about. The First Amendment, the Constitution, that's the democracy of it. But once you start attacking people, attacking things, then that's wrong. Mm. And you know what? That goes to the riots this summer. They were wrong. If you peacefully protest, then sure. But the riots and the violence and the damage this summer, they were wrong. Mm-hmm. They were wrong. And that's the exact same thing that happened at the Capitol. But their goal was to overthrow democracy, which is a bigger threat to America.
Yeah. The Department of Homeland Security is warning about the possibility of more violence in the next few weeks because, as you know, there's this right-wing conspiracy theory out there that's...
All right, guys. You saw what I was talking about, right? In that first clip, the Capitol Police officer said, yeah, kind of what happened last year, these police officers were treated pretty bad, right? I feel for those police officers and what they went through. And guess what? This is on the same show that, in the same network that has routinely ignored what the police officers have went through when in regards to the BLM protests. They're up here pretending that they care about police officers so much. Our police are so great. We love the police. But they did not give a damn about the police. They did not give one flying F about the police, right? All last year when they were being terrorized by people that CNN agrees with ideologically, right? Matter of fact, CNN was on the defund the police train, demolished the police train. And you notice how, again, like I said, Don Lemon had to correct him there. He had to say, well, but they weren't trying to overthrow democracy. Even though those police officers was going through all that terrible time, the protesters and rioters, there's some were peaceful, some may not have been peaceful, but they weren't trying to overthrow democracy. Don't you agree with that? Don't you agree with that? You agree with that, right? Because, on our propaganda network, we got to just keep the conversation about January 6th here. We can't start talking about BLM and what happened last year because, a lot of our viewers, they might actually start to believe that both of those things were wrong. They might actually start to critically think and say, was there really that much of a difference between what happened all of last year and what happened on January 6th? Was it really that much of a difference when all those protesters stormed the Capitol to try to stop Brett Kavanaugh from being appointed as a Supreme Court justice, right? Was it really all that different? The last thing CNN Propaganda Network and Don Lemon had want is their viewers to critically think. So he had to make sure he corrected this police officer quick, fast, and in a hurry, right? This is honest journalist Don Lemon doing this, right? Literally trying to lead his interviewee into a certain narrative that Don Lemon wants. Because if you guys notice, what the Capitol Police officer really wanted to say was, why can't we just call out both sides for what it is? Right? Which has been my stance. My stance is, hey, I just want to call out both sides for what it is. I mean, both are wrong. It's pretty clear. But we can't ignore one, right? It's not whataboutism to say, maybe we should deal with all political violence on both sides. Maybe that might be the direction that the country needs to be headed in. But again, that's a sin, right? To say that on CNN. Now, again, the second time this guy mentioned this, right, he self-corrected himself. Okay? When he was talking about how, violence on both sides is wrong. It was basically the same thing. This is the second time he said, yeah, they're the same thing. Now, we were not able to see Don Lemon's face and Don Lemon's reactions, but I guarantee you Don Lemon's face probably told him, you better correct up. You better fix that. Because then the officer says, but they weren't trying to overthrow democracy, right? But they weren't trying to overthrow democracy, okay? And then you notice Don Lemon, instead of following up on that, right, trying to follow up on that point, he goes into, well, there's a new right-wing conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, this is what I'm talking about. This is why the mainstream media is so dishonest. CNN, Don Lemon, they pretend like they love police. But when confronted with a police officer saying that, well, other police officers are also treated pretty bad across the country, Don Lemon tries to change the subject. He tries to say, well, you shouldn't bring that up. That's whataboutism. And it's like, no, Don, that's not whataboutism. It's not what it is. That's a legitimate point. This police officer says he feels bad for all the police officers that went through this stuff. But see, Don Lemon, in his head, and doing this segment, really shows you that I don't really care about them police officers. That doesn't fit the narrative that we're trying to push here at CNN. So therefore, you probably shouldn't be bringing this up. We don't want you talking about this. We're going to steer you in the right direction. Because they don't really care about police officers, period. He doesn't even care about the police officers he's talking to. He only cares about him as much as to, again, try to paint this narrative about January 6th. That's how much CNN really cares about those Capitol Police officers. And it's really, really sad that these Capitol Police officers are allowing themselves to be used by the liberal media and used by the Democrat Party as pawns against the Republican Party, which has been very supportive of police. Right? The Republican Party has been very, very supportive of the police. Okay? Very supportive of the police. And I will say this because I think it has to be said, considering this is a conservative channel. I don't think that it's a good move strategically to really be going after these Capitol Police officers like that. Okay? Because they were overwhelmed. It's not their fault that they were there that day. right? It's not their fault. It's really the fault of Nancy Pelosi, right? And I think a better way of actually framing this issue from those on the right is not to attack the Capitol Police officers. Since we're supposed to be back in the blue, what we actually should be doing is, why is Nancy Pelosi not getting them more help, right? Why did Nancy Pelosi not help them out? Why did she not put them in a better situation so that nobody would have got inside of the building in the first place, especially if there was information out there to suggest that this was a possibility? That's what the real focus from the right should be. It shouldn't be on the police officers, okay? I'm just saying that's not a good look, right? Considering everything that the right is supposed to be about, okay? In regards to police. But like I said, I mean, this interview right here, in my opinion, it really does just show how fake the news media is, and just how they don't care about using people to achieve their own goals and the narrative that they want to push, and ignore the exact same thing when it doesn't fit their narrative. And Don Lemon just clearly put that on display here, trying to basically control the narrative of this conversation, even though this is supposed to be an interview. This is supposed to be an open discussion. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.